Some people are afraid of losing a battle. Others are afraid of never becoming the warrior they believe they were meant to be. The first fear makes you avoid the fight. The second makes you chase every fight. You begin measuring your strength against everyone around you. You train longer. You strike harder. You push yourself beyond exhaustion because you believe that if you become strong enough, fast enough, and feared enough, you will finally feel worthy. You begin living for a reputation you have not yet earned. You compare yourself to the warriors who came before you. You carry the expectations of your family on your shoulders. You hear the stories of great men and secretly wonder why you are not like them. And slowly, without realizing it, you stop fighting for the life you want. You start fighting to prove that you are enough. But there is a danger in becoming obsessed with proving your strength. Because the more desperate you become to prove that you are a warrior, the more easily anger controls you. The more afraid you are of looking weak, the more reckless you become. And the more battles you believe you must win, the less you understand which battles are actually worth fighting. In a small samurai village hidden between two ancient mountains, there lived an old warrior who understood this better than anyone. His name was Masanori. He had fought in battles. He had carried a sword into places where men did not expect to return. He had seen warriors become heroes, and he had seen proud men destroy themselves. But when he finally returned to his village, he did something that confused everyone. He stopped fighting. He rarely drew his sword. He spent his mornings tending the garden, walking beside the river, repairing fences, and watching the young warriors train, and the secret he had learned after a lifetime of war. Masanori had discovered that the hardest enemy a warrior will ever face is not the man standing across from him. It is the part of himself that is desperate to prove he is strong. And one young man was about to learn that lesson the hardest way possible. His name was Haru. Haru was 17 years old and desperate to become a samurai worthy of his father's name. His father had been one of the village's finest warriors before dying during a border conflict. From the time Haru could walk, people had told him stories about the man his father had been. Brave, fearless, strong. Haru wanted desperately to become the same. But there was one problem. Haru was afraid. He was afraid of losing. Afraid of looking weak. Afraid of disappointing his father's memory. And more than anything, he was afraid that the people around him would discover that beneath his confidence was a young man who did not know who he was. So he trained harder than everyone else. He woke before sunrise. He practiced until his hands bled. He challenged older students. He fought aggressively. But the harder he tried to prove himself, the worse he became. His movements were fast but uncontrolled. His strikes were powerful but predictable. His anger made him reckless. One afternoon, after losing another sparring match, Haru threw his wooden sword into the dirt. "I'll never be good enough." A voice behind him answered. "Good enough for whom?" Haru turned. Masanori stood beneath the cedar tree. "For my father." The old samurai looked at him for several seconds. "Your father's dead." Haru's expression hardened. "I know." "Then why are you still trying to defeat him?" Haru did not understand. Masanori picked up the wooden sword from the ground. "You're not fighting your opponents." He handed the sword back. "You're fighting a memory." That sentence became the beginning of Haru's transformation. For the next year, Masanori would teach him 7 lessons. The lessons would come from swordsmen, battles, farmers, rivers, falling leaves, and the quiet discipline of village life. But beneath all of them was one truth. A warrior who cannot govern himself will eventually be defeated by himself. Lesson 1. The sword follows the mind. Masanori's first lesson was not swordsmanship, it was stillness. Every morning, Haru arrived at the training ground expecting to fight. Instead, Masanori made him sit. The first morning, Haru lasted 3 minutes before asking when training would begin. "Now," Masanori replied, "we aren't doing anything." "You're doing something very difficult." "What?" "Nothing." Haru rolled his eyes. For 7 days, Masanori made him sit beside the river. No sword, no sparring, no running, only observation. Haru hated it. His mind raced. He thought about his father's reputation. He imagined future battles. He replayed his failures. He worried about what the other young warriors thought of him. On the 8th morning, Masanori asked, "What did you learn?" "That sitting is boring." The old samurai smiled. "No, you learned that you cannot sit alone with your own thoughts." Haru became silent. Masanori continued, "A warrior who cannot control his mind will never truly control his sword." He explained that the greatest warriors did not simply react faster. They saw more clearly because fear and anger did not control their decisions. The lesson reminded Haru of stories he had heard about great swordsmen such as Miyamoto Musashi, whose writings emphasized perception, discipline, and understanding beyond mere technique. A sword could cut through flesh. A calm mind could cut through confusion. Haru began practicing stillness. At first, nothing changed. Then slowly, he began noticing things: his breathing, his anger, his impatience, the desire to impress people. He discovered something uncomfortable. He had spent years training his body while allowing his mind to remain undisciplined. The first lesson was simple. Before you learn to defeat another person, learn to stop being defeated by yourself. Lesson 2. Do not swing at shadows. One evening, Masanori took Haru into the forest. The moon was low, branches moved in the wind. Masanori drew his sword, then he pointed toward a tree. "Attack." Haru looked confused. "There's nothing there." "Exactly." Suddenly Masanori moved. His sword flashed through the air. Haru jumped backward. Again, the old warrior struck at empty space. Haru watched. "What are you doing?" "Showing you how fear creates enemies." Masanori explained that when people are afraid, they begin fighting things that do not exist. An imagined insult, an imagined failure, an imagined future, an imagined judgment. They spend energy fighting shadows. Haru realized that much of his life had been built around imaginary battles. He wanted to become strong because he imagined people looking down on him. He wanted to defeat other warriors because he imagined his father judging him. He feared failure before failure even happened. Masanori sheathed his sword. "Do not fight what has not arrived." That became Haru's second lesson. Prepare for reality. Do not suffer twice by fighting your imagination. Lesson 3. The fastest blade is not always the best. During the summer festival, a traveling swordsman arrived in the village. He was young, confident, and incredibly fast. He challenged the local warriors. One after another, they lost. Then, he challenged Haru. Haru immediately accepted. He attacked with everything he had. The stranger avoided every strike. Haru became angry. He attacked harder, faster, more desperately. The stranger stepped aside and tapped Haru lightly on the chest with the wooden sword. The match was over. Haru was humiliated. That evening he asked Masanori why he had lost. "You were faster than him." Haru frowned. "Then why did I lose?" "Because you were in a hurry to win." Masanori explained that speed without control creates openings. A person who rushes toward success often becomes blind to what is happening around him. The old samurai then told Haru about the legendary swordsman Minamoto no Yoshitsune, remembered in Japanese history and legend for his battlefield brilliance and tactical ability. "Skill is not simply moving quickly," Masanori said. "It is knowing when not to move." That night, Haru understood something he had never considered. Sometimes the strongest action is restraint. Lesson 4. A warrior must know when to retreat. Autumn came. One morning, a messenger arrived from the neighboring province. A group of armed men had been seen near the mountain road. The village council prepared for conflict. Haru wanted to fight. Masanori refused. "We don't know why they are here. They could attack us." "They could. Then we should attack first." Masanori looked at him. That is fear speaking. Haru became angry. If we retreat, people will think we are weak. The old samurai shook his head. A warrior who retreats from an unnecessary battle is not weak. He looked toward the mountains. He is wise. Men eventually passed through the region without attacking. They had been traveling to another province. No battle occurred. Haru felt ashamed. For years, he had believed courage meant moving toward danger. Now, he understood that courage sometimes meant refusing to create danger in the first place. A man who must prove his courage constantly is often controlled by insecurity. The fourth lesson was, do not confuse aggression with strength. Sometimes the strongest person is the one who has nothing to prove. Lesson 5. Your enemy can become your teacher. Winter arrived early. A rival warrior named Daichi returned to the village. He had disliked Haru for years. Unlike Haru, Daichi was naturally talented. He was disciplined, calm, and respected. Haru secretly hated him. Every time Daichi succeeded, Haru felt smaller. One evening, Masanori discovered Haru watching Daichi train. Why are you watching him? To find his weakness. Masanori smiled. Good. Haru looked surprised. Really? Yes. The old samurai pointed toward Daichi. Now find his strength. Haru watched carefully. Daichi repeated the same movement dozens of times, slowly, precisely, without distraction. Haru suddenly understood. He had been studying Daichi as an enemy. He should have been studying him as a teacher. From that day forward, Haru stopped asking, "How do I beat him?" He began asking, "What can I learn from him?" His jealousy began to disappear. Not because Daichi changed, because Haru changed the way he looked at him. The fifth lesson was powerful. The person you envy may be showing you what you need to learn. Lesson 6. The sword must serve something greater. Years earlier, Masanori had fought in wars for a lord. He had followed orders, won battles, protected territory. But he had eventually discovered that victory alone did not create meaning. One evening, while repairing a farmer's broken fence, Haru asked him, "Why did you leave the battlefield?" Masanori continued working. "Because I realized I'd spent years learning how to destroy things." He looked toward the village. "I wanted to learn how to protect them." That sentence changed Haru. He had spent his entire life imagining the sword as a symbol of power. Masanori showed him another possibility. The sword was not valuable because it could take life. It was valuable because the person carrying it understood when it should remain sheathed. A warrior's purpose was not to display strength. It was to protect what deserved protection: family, village, honor, truth. Those who cannot identify what they are protecting will eventually use their strength for themselves. Haru began training differently. He no longer trained to become feared. He trained to become useful. Lesson 7. The warrior who accepts death learns how to live. Spring returned. Cherry blossoms filled the village. Masanori was now old. His hands trembled slightly. His breathing was slower. One morning, he took Haru to the highest hill overlooking the village. "Do you still want to become like your father?" Haru thought about the question. "No." Masanori smiled. "Good." Haru looked toward the village below. "I want to become myself." For the first time, Masanori looked satisfied. He told Haru that every warrior eventually faces the same truth. Life ends, reputation ends, strength ends. Even memory eventually fades. The mistake is spending your life trying to escape this reality. Accepting mortality does not make life meaningless. It makes every moment more valuable. The samurai traditions that emphasized readiness for death were not simply about dying. At their best, they could cultivate seriousness about how one chooses to live, while Zen-influenced practice encouraged discipline and awareness. Masanori looked at the cherry blossoms falling around them. Look carefully. Haru watched. Each flower was beautiful. Each was temporary. That is why it matters. The seventh lesson was not about death. It was about presence. You do not honor life by pretending it will last forever. You honor it by refusing to waste the time you actually have. The last battle. Years later, the village faced a real threat. A group of armed men approached from the northern road. This time, there was no misunderstanding. They intended to take the village's rice stores. The young warriors gathered at the gate. Haru stood among them. His hand rested on his sword. He could feel the old fear returning. But something was different. He did not rush. He did not seek glory. He did not imagine what people would say. He breathed. He observed. He waited. Then he gave instructions. Farmers moved the rice. Women and children were taken to safety. The village gates were closed. The warriors positioned themselves strategically. When the attackers arrived, they expected chaos. Instead, they found discipline. The battle was brief. The village survived. Afterward, one of the younger warriors approached Haru. "Why weren't you afraid?" Haru looked toward the mountains. "I was." The young man looked surprised. "Then how did you remain calm?" Haru smiled. "I stopped asking fear to disappear." He had finally understood Masanori's first lesson. Courage was not the absence of fear. It was refusing to surrender your decisions to fear. The old samurai's final lesson. That evening, Haru returned to the hill. Masanori was waiting. He had heard what happened. "You fought well," the old samurai said. Haru bowed. "I remembered your lessons." Masanori smiled. "No." Haru looked up. "You finally made them yours." The old warrior removed his sword and placed it on the ground between them. "Take it." Haru hesitated. "This was your sword." "I know." "Why give it to me?" "Because you finally understand what it means to carry one." Haru picked it up. It was heavier than he expected, not because of the steel, because of everything it represented: responsibility, discipline, restraint, protection, mortality. Masanori looked toward the village. "Remember something." "What?" "The greatest warrior is not the man who can defeat everyone." He paused. "It is the man who no longer needs to." Final transformation. Years passed. Haru eventually became the village's senior warrior. Young men came to him hoping to learn swordsmanship. They expected him to teach them how to strike. Instead, he taught them how to stand. They expected him to teach them how to defeat an opponent. Instead, he taught them how to control themselves. They expected stories about battle. He told them about silence, about patience, about restraint, about the farmer's broken fence, about the falling cherry blossoms. About the night he learned that most of his enemies had never existed outside his own mind. And whenever a young warrior became obsessed with proving himself, Haru would take him to the river. He would make him sit, just as Masanori had once made him sit. Because the lessons had never really been about swords. The sword was only the metaphor. The real battlefield was inside the human being. Every person carries an opponent they cannot escape: fear, pride, anger, envy, impatience, the desire for approval. And until those things are understood, no victory outside yourself will ever be enough. Haru eventually understood why Masanori had rarely drawn his sword.